Alrighty, hello there, everybody. How you doing? Whoops, I forgot to put my headphones on, so let me do that real quick. We're here tonight with Ricky Kidd, folks. You guys know I've been looking forward to talking to Ricky. He was wrongfully convicted. He was recently exonerated about 8 months ago, and he's got a lot of passion and energy to spread awareness about wrongful convictions, and I think he's absolutely great. So I'm here talking with Ricky tonight. How you doing, Ricky?
I'm good. Very well, thank you. And thank everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my story and fan the flame, so to speak, about wrongful convictions across the country. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. It's great. So I'll tell you what, folks, the main focus of what I wanted to talk about tonight was to really, give the MAM community a good, show you and kind of illustrate why we need to take a wider interest, an interest of a wider scope of wrongful convictions, because being aware of wrongful convictions and creating the awareness of them is what's going to help our justice system evolve, because we need more people to believe that the prosecution and the DAs and the investigators don't always get it right. Not that it's always done maliciously, but they just don't always get it right. Right now, there seems to be this stigma in our society that they kind of don't want to accept that could be a possibility sometimes. And we really need people to start being willing to accept that possibility so that we can start getting some meaningful change in our criminal justice system. What do you think about that, Ricky?
100%. 100%. Listen, my audience isn't just the people who already believe in innocence or wrongful convictions. I want my audience to be, in addition to those individuals, people who have yet to come to that conclusion. And that's so extremely important. When I was in Spokane, Washington in late February, March, early March, we had the opportunity to sit down with the chief of police, with the prosecutor, with judges, defense attorneys, the community, and really to have an intellectual conversation about what happens with our criminal justice system, and will you be inclined to believe that work needs to be done? Now, this particular prosecutor who they put me in front of, who was there, they said, listen, don't expect anything, period. He's not the type that'll listen. I don't even know why he comes, but we had a very, very fruitful evening. And he even came up to me at the end and said, you know what? You made me realize there's some things that I can work on. And that was so important. And that's essentially the point that you're making right now.
Right. That's the first step. Getting somebody to at least acknowledge and consider that maybe there's a different way, that maybe they've been looking at it the wrong way. I mean, that's the first step. So it's a big step. So congratulations.
Yeah.
We need to get more DAs to
be taking
that. So, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, so we're going to be talking, we're going to be focusing on why it's important to be, aware of what happens in these wrongful convictions. Why I've been telling you folks that you need to watch the Innocence Files. Why I hope, Peter and Peter Neufeld and hopefully they're going to do a season 2 and 3 and 4. I mean, I want to know more about the cases of, and that they fought and won. Mm-hmm. And I want to see more of the telltale signs of a wrongful conviction, because that's exactly what they're showing us.
Yeah.
And so, so you guys know I've been pushing that. So we're here talking to Ricky today. And there's some aspects of Ricky's case, obviously, that kind of touch on some of the aspects we see in the Innocence Files, mm-hmm. Like regarding witness ID. It's pretty clear in Ricky's case that the prosecution was playing some games and they were maybe being a bit bullish with a 4-year-old.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. I mean, would you like to explain a little bit of that situation for everybody?
Yeah. Well, just a quick backdrop for those who may not know. My name is Ricky Kidd, and I was recently exonerated about 8 months ago after spending 23 years in prison for a crime that I absolutely would have never committed. The Innocence Project, the Midwest Innocence Project, Professor Sean O'Brien, Cindy Dodge, ex-police commissioner here in Kansas City. So many people came to my aid and defense, and it still took 10 years. It took 10 years to get the attention, and then it took another almost 14 years to finally make it out of there. But one of the elements that kind of helped convict me wrongfully, obviously, right, is where the prosecution played with a 4-year-old witness and basically was coercing her. They had pictures of me already, and then so they'll say, "Oh, he had a silver chain on, didn't he?" And she'll say, "Yeah." And then they say, "Oh, he wore glasses too, didn't he?" And you could tell that they was just walking her through the process with doing some hanky-panky, just trying to secure a conviction. It didn't go over well in court. One of their other state witnesses, who obviously came forward years later, admitted that he lied and that he was paid and that hanky-panky took place with him. Right. But it still was important nonetheless, because when the jury is looking at all of that, and when the jury is seeing that a little girl, a father was murdered, they want somebody to pay. Yes. They want to. So I kind of felt that they knew that she wasn't going to be able to identify me in court, but let's waltz her in here anyway. The sympathy is going to be a given, right, and then we're going to get a conviction, what ended up being a wrongful conviction. So, yeah, we really got to pay attention to not that Billy is innocent or Charlie is innocent or Steve or Brendan or Ricky or Troy, but why are they getting convicted in the first place? And how often is that happening? So I'm really glad again to be here tonight to really talk about why that happens and how often is it really happening. I'm another case example. 8 months ago, I'm home. Here I am.
Right. And that's why I think it's brilliant that, you know, we have like the Innocence Project and the Innocence Network that are compiling all of this data, saying, look, this is where they got it wrong here. This is where they got it wrong here. You start starting to see a pattern here. I mean, it's pretty simple when you start to look at the data. So at least it's there. And hopefully when we get more people aware that mistakes are being made and willfully ignored at present, that hopefully more people will start calling for the change we need in the criminal justice system. And I believe that a lot of that change is going to be dictated by the stats coming out of the Innocence Project. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's brilliant. I think that's where I agree with you. A lot of people need to focus on that sort of stuff. Because like I said, having a wider scope of knowledge about wrongful convictions, folks, because I know a lot of you out there are passionate about Avery Dassey. You watched MAM, and you're passionate about Avery Dassey. You are personally involved with Avery Dassey. But I was too. I mean, when I first started in year one, I kind of was emotionally attached to the Avery Dassey thing, wasn't really keen to go looking into other wrongful convictions yet, mainly because I was still absorbing mountains of paperwork and documents and all kinds of things that I was absorbing, so I wasn't ready. But everybody has to reach a point where, you know, once you've absorbed most of the Avery Dassey knowledge, and you start looking at other wrongful convictions, because it helps you to argue more effectively, not just for Stephen and Brendan, because you're going to eventually start to care about other wrongfully convicted individuals like me with Scott Davis. You guys know I'm over here freaking, you know, creating a ruckus over what happened to Scott Davis in Georgia. So, I mean, eventually we have got to open our minds up to other wrongful convictions. So that's mainly what we're obviously here to talk about today. So, and just talking about how the system's getting it wrong and what we need to do to get the system to recognize there's a problem and to recognize the data that's right there in front of their faces that they're kind of failing to, you know, take into account. So
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, great point. Listen, one of the first thing, there's many things to that question. How do we fix this? How do we build a house? We need hammer, we need nails, we need screws, we need a faucet, we need many things. We need the space to put the foundation on, and then first we need to do this, and then so we understand that it's not a magic bullet. If it was, I think somebody would have discovered it, and all the innocent people, including Stephen and Brendan, will be home now. Right. But one of the first things that we do is have this conversation, have these platforms. That's why I'm happy to come on here. Because these platforms need to exist, and they need to be sustained by viewers. People coming on and having a desire or an appetite for this type of truth. for this type of reality, because whether it's Steve, whether it's Brendan, whether it's any other individual, listen, everybody pays the price for that. Taxpayers foot the bill. The community is left unsafe because the wrong people is in there. That means the right people is in a free society. And so we all have an interest in why this should be important, and it should not take just Netflix. I love that series. Glad they came out with it. I know Barry and Peter both personally. I've met them in person. In fact, just talked to Barry maybe just 2 weeks ago. And so I really applaud them for what they're doing and do hope they come with a season 2. But we need to have these shows as well in the meanwhile. As many of them as possible, as many viewers as possible, and as many discussions, because we keep the drum beat drumming. When we stop drumming the beat, even when we're not directly talking about Steve, and I love Steve and Brendan's story as well. I followed their story as well. I was inspired because The Making of a Murder came in when I was still in prison. I was inspired. And I was so happy that they gave, that Netflix gave the issue that type of attention. And so, but we have to continue to do our part too, and continue the drumbeat and making sure that people are paying attention. Listen, please, when the lights go out and we go away, that's the worst thing we can do. Please listen to me. When the lights go out and we go away, we heard every case of wrongful convictions because elected officials, including judges and prosecutors, they're going to say nobody is paying attention anymore. We can do what we want to do. Let me tell you, my friend and my friends, one of the reasons why we got in this place in the first place is because wasn't nobody paying attention. This pattern, this trend, this crisis in America as it relates to wrongful convictions, it did not happen overnight. It did not happen in a vacuum. It was because we were not paying attention. It was because these shows were not prevalent. And then it was because people were not tuning in. And then lastly, once you tune in, that's great. This is not entertainment, though.
Right.
And if you want to consider it, call it entertainment, information, education programming, because we have to be educated, well, informed and educated as it relates to what's going on and exactly what we can do. And so when we leave the show today, I always want to try to leave giving a tidbit or two forward as it relates to what we can do about it. So let's make sure that we give the audience a 1, 2, 3 step process as it relates to what they can do instead. And then that way there's more connectivity and they feeling like they didn't just waste an hour or some change watching the show, but they was actually armed with knowledge and then what to do with that knowledge. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you know, that's, you know, part of the battle that we're fighting here is the fact that there is an apathy, you know, in regards to this subject for the American people. And I believe part of that may be because the reasons you just stated. Obviously, we became a bit complacent, no doubt about that. But also the coming in of all the CSI shows, all those shows created this thing where now people were not, first of all, not even paying attention, but then suddenly they were having these CSI shows thrown in their face where they were heavily, you know, highly entertained by them, and suddenly they started to believe that prosecution, state, and everybody could do no wrong, that they're just the good guys and they never do anything wrong. It's like it's not like it's a message in the show, but subliminally that's what people started to think. I mean, I've heard it referred to as the CSI effect, and I believe that could be contributing to it too. People got to understand that those are TV shows. They're fictional, but I believe they have added to the problem where people are unwilling to look at and consider that they get it wrong sometimes. I think maybe because it's unpleasant, maybe just because it's an unpleasant thing to consider. I don't know. There could be a lot of factors, but hopefully loud guys like you and me will be able to do something about
that. Yeah. That's my goal. Listen, that's my goal. I am committed to changing the wrong, making it right, putting justice back on the right track. And I, even on my website, resilienceMode.com, there's a space there where you can click and read about my platform called Crisis in America, and really exactly what I'm talking about. Not just raising my voice or coming on a show, but intellectually understanding what the issues are, seeing it from a pragmatic point of view, and then having the courage and the forethought to actually step out there and do something about it. I always tell people wherever I go, hey, you're not about to let a person that's been gone almost a quarter of a century outdo you now, are you? Because I'm out here and I hit the ground running. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. And a part of my job, I feel, is to get other people fired up and ready to go. Be it Steve, be it Brendan, be it the rest of the 5% of the U.S. population who was most likely wrongfully convicted in the first place.
Right. It's disturbing. I mean, stats coming out of the Innocence Project, like 25% of murder convictions that involved a confession ended up having 25% of those were false.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's a disturbing stat to be coming out. I mean, that tells us that our DAs and stuff are stepping over the line, you know, to be able to get some of these convictions. I mean, the proof is out there, folks. You know, we need to pay attention to it. I mean, and we need to make other people more aware of it, and we need to continue to do that. So, I wanted to ask you, Ricky. I know obviously you spent 23 years in prison and wrongfully, and that must have been rough. I can only imagine. I know I can't really understand it, but I can imagine how terrible it would be being an innocent person locked in a place like that. I wanted to ask you, when you were in there and that was weighing on you and the despair would start to set in, what were some of the tools that you had, you know, mentally or whatever otherwise, that helped you work through that type of despair when you were in there?
Fair question. At first, it was, I got convicted, charged in 96, convicted in 97. The first year and a half or 2 years, it was depression, despair, anger, and rage.
Yeah.
Depression, despair, anger, and rage. And it showed up whether I was on the phone having a mini tirade, whether I would be getting into an argument with somebody, usually the correctional officers. And then having a mindset like that, I was hardly ever calm. I could hardly ever focus. So I have to swim or sink,
right?
Swim or die. You got to get your head together, but you can't in that state. So I quickly realized that, you know what, I got to pull myself out of this. And so little by little, I learned how to do that. And once I was able to pull myself out of those emotions, I began to replace them with emotions that was better suited for an outcome like today.
Right.
So
positively reinforced. More positively reinforced.
Absolutely. One of the things that I talk about, my friend, is with the 5 keys to activating your resilience. Key 1 is to get anchored. And so I had to get still for a minute, wrap my mind around what was really going on, decide exactly what I wanted to do, and then key 2, get moving. So I had to get moving. I could not stay still. I could not stay stagnant. I felt like if I did that, I would sink into quicksand and that I would quickly lose the battle way before the 23 years came, and I was subsequently able to win the battle. But I read books, I exercised, I kept my mind on the end. Stephen Covey talks about begin with the end in mind, because as long as you're looking at what's in front of you, and man, sometimes what's in front of us is daunting. Yes. It's ugly. It's disappointing. It's everything dark. And so we can really get sucked into that mentally. But the goal is to try to raise your head up a little bit and look beyond that, to look past what's going on right now, kind of see what the end looks like. And it doesn't fix it. The gates are not going to magically open. The guards are not going to stop being mean-spirited, some of them. Your environment isn't going to change.
Right.
but your mindset changes.
Yes.
And you can see above it a little bit and then project yourself being out. That's what I did to your question, what worked for me, and then kept my mind moving. Physically, I couldn't stay moving, but mentally, I kept my mind moving. The moment I stopped moving mentally, the quicksand bubble ups.
Right.
And before you know it, you can feel it on your feet. And if you sit there too long in a stupor or that daze, then you can really sink, and you can sink fast. So that's what works for me. I am planning on going back into the prisons first, talking to the group of people who we believe may be wrongfully convicted. I'm going to try to coordinate this here in Missouri first, because I still know at administration officials and then inmates in those prisons. So I'm going to try to coordinate going back in and talking to a group of not people who is absolutely innocent, because that's not the form to determine that. Right. But they're going to put up a flyer, and if you have a claim of innocence or believe you're innocent, then come out, and then I'm going to walk them through a kind of like a small curriculum or a how to survive while fighting a case of wrongful conviction. So I'm really excited about having an opportunity to be able to do that. And again, it lands dead square on your question: how do we muster the energy to survive such an awful nightmare that many people could not hardly either fathom many years ago or surely survive if it was them?
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, obviously you're going to be kind of equipping with the tools some of those folks when you go there to visit.
Yeah, sure.
Some of them may be wondering what to do and may be lost in their own wrongful conviction. So that will at least give them a way to go, point them in the right direction. So that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. The presentation that I actually have, and I actually put it together while I was in prison. So I was eating, sleeping, and breathing this stuff, but it breaks down what the prisoner can do. It breaks down what the family can do. It tells you how to access resources. It tells you how to pitch to organizations when you're needing help. It's a full breakdown, my man. It's a full breakdown. There are people often say, man, you look good. You don't look like you've been through the ringer, which I have. You don't look like you've been through a nightmare, which I have. But so I never want to minimize that or excuse that. But what did help significantly is being able to wrap my mind around what it actually takes to survive a wrongful conviction, be it the person himself, their family, or even their supporters. And so again, I'm really excited to be able to roll this packet out and deliver this as much as the Department of Corrections will allow me to go back in there and share this education and information.
Right. Absolutely. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And and that's part of your spirit. And I believe it comes through, because obviously first time I saw you, you were on with Tracy during Mammothon.
Yeah.
And I just remember when you came in at the end of Doreen's segment, and Doreen had been talking about her son and the fact that he's wrongfully convicted, and she got to talking about her Christmas tree that she's been leaving up all year, and I could tell I felt for her when she was talking about it, because she's just like, people come over to my house in June and they see this Christmas tree here and everything. And you came in and it was like first thing out of your mouth, you were like reinforcing her, like, you do not take that tree down. I thought that was brilliant, dude. I just did. I thought that was brilliant. I instantly liked it. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you, because I've now watched your second video with Tracy and with you guys talking about your good friend Lamar.
Yeah.
Do you have? Well, my first part of the question is: do you have a Christmas tree, so to speak, in terms of Lamar? Something symbolic, like she has.
My promise.
Yeah.
Our promise and our commitment that I've been on record talking about before. That is my Christmas tree. To never let go, never take it down, or never let go. Right. And so there was nothing for me to leave up or take down, but there was something for me to not let go. And that is the commitment that we made to each other, that whoever made it out first will come back and get the other person. I hold on to that every day. I eat, sleep, and breathe that as well. I try to be careful because I'm really aggressive and passionate about this stuff. But you got to be careful when he's still in court and it's still been litigated. So I have to be mindful as it relates to how much I talk about or exactly how I share. But wherever I'm at or wherever they're at and whatever I can do, I'm there for Lamar. But not just Lamar. I want to just say real quick, not just for Lamar, but for every Lamar. For every Steve, for every Brendan. I'm really fighting for everybody. I was just up at the state capitol about 6-7 weeks ago, right before COVID came, pretty tough, testifying before lawmakers. I mean, the places that I've been, the things that I'm doing. In a few weeks, I'll be going speaking with a local police department during one of their training. Like I feel like I'm on the front lines for everybody. For everybody, not just one person. I will dip my hand in, particularly as it relates to practically any person who I believe is really innocent. I'll lend my voice. But just in general, I'm willing to support the whole issue of wrongful convictions and whatever I can do. And I'm saying this on the record, whatever Ricky Lamont Kidd can do to help anybody who's innocent. And it's a tangible action. If it's a tangible action and I can do it, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm going to do my best to be there. That's just how important this issue is to me.
Right, absolutely. Keeping that in mind, what you just said about his case being active, I'll forego the next part of the question. So, obviously, I guess let's talk about, you have obviously a no man left behind kind of a policy with Lamar there. Can you tell us a bit about how you guys were friends? And, I heard you talking about a little bit about this with Tracy. I just wanted to kind of do it again, but how you guys were kind of helping each other and how you guys were kind of a support for each other and helping to deal with this mess.
Yeah. It was special. It was special. I'm a writer, and I'm an avid reader. I'm a recluse when I'm not out here doing this type of work. Lamar's the same way. So somebody had told Lamar, hey, man, I think you and this guy named Ricky would get along. Y'all write, y'all read. So Lamar had approached me, the table that I was sitting at writing, and we began having a conversation. Instantly, we clicked, not knowing about each other's case. Again, reading, writing. We loved working out at the time. And then one day, Lamar had to shoot off to the law library, and I asked him where was he going. He said, I'm going to the law library. I said, what are you working on? And he said, well, we got a little sheepish there. And he said, I'm actually innocent. I know everybody say that.
Right.
And then he had his hand out like, don't pass judgment. And I smiled and I said, well, I know everybody say that they're innocent, but I'm innocent too. And we both fell out laughing. I mean, we had a real connection there in that moment. From there on out, we began to draw even closer. We would share same resources as far as who to reach out to, what lawyers to try to contact. We would share each other's energy. We would listen to each other's stories. When one was down, the other one would lift the other one up. And so we really became each other's accountability partners, support partners. We even became cellies for a few years. We were cellmates for a few years. And we was really able to dream. We dreamed about returning to society with the deserved freedom that should have never been taken. We talked about returning to our daughters. He has the same situation as I do, the same age that I left my daughter. He left his daughter, and so we really had these dreams also about helping people. Before we made the pact to help each other or not to forget each other, we often talked about helping people. And so one of his things too, when he get out here, and he's gonna get out here, can't wait for him to come on your show and all these shows, because that story needs to be told as well. But we're gonna connect once he get out here, and we're gonna continue to do what I've already started doing, using our voice to help other people. So beautiful guy, beautiful, very, very humble. I mean, very humble. It's
Right.
not like they're locking up monsters or these violent people.
Right.
These are beautiful people. Steve, Brendan, you could tell when we watch the making of a murder, these are beautiful spirit souls who they just take away, stamp a number on top of us, and then try to discard us and make everybody else
Forget
ignore
about it. Yes.
Right.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I mean, for me, one of the biggest parts of, imagining being wrongfully convicted is, and it's a big part of why I continue to talk about this, because if I ever find myself on the wrong end of the state's barrel, I'd like to know that there's a community of people out there that will know exactly what to do to expose it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that sort of thing. So that's another reason why I think it's important. It's been an eye-opening experience since watching Making a Murderer. I mean, for me, the last 4.5 years, learning more and more about wrongful convictions and learning more and more about the antics that these entities that I once had nearly absolute trust in, like DA's offices and things like that, and law enforcement officers. And I still do. I still believe most law enforcement officers are good guys, but it was a really a rude awakening to see how often lazy police work or investigation work or DA work was ending up in these wrongful convictions. And it's like you say, you're robbing. I mean, number one, you're often allowing the victim and their family or whatever, or the victim's family, walk away like happy idiots. They don't even know. And I'm not calling them idiots. I'm just saying they don't even realize that they didn't receive justice. I mean, that's pretty messed up all on its own. But then you got the wrongfully convicted gentlemen or women themselves, their families, and all the damage there. Then you have the community at large that ends up having to pay taxes, because when this wrongfully convicted individual spends 15 to 25 years fighting his wrongful conviction, the state's continuing to spend and throw more money at that, spending more of the taxpayers' money after bad money after a bad conviction, and more money wasted until it eventually gets overturned. And then there's a settlement that ends up falling on the taxpayers usually. So how expensive is it when we get it wrong? How much of an incentive do we have to look at it and maybe get it right, or at least want to get it right, to at least to start to evaluate some of the data coming out of the Innocence Projects? I guess I'm just disappointed at the lethargy of our justice system in kind of coming around to what this data is telling us and teaching us.
Yeah. It's billions. It's billions with a B. That's a B.
Yeah.
That B that comes after A in the alphabet. It's billions. So you're talking about, on the low end, 20,000 a year. So when you talk about 20 years, you're talking about $400,000. Now, 20 years is the average amount of time that it takes for an individual who's innocent to regain their deserved freedom. So 20 years times 20,000 on the low end. Some states is higher, 33,000. They've been trying to shrink that number, which makes the conditions even worse because they're budgeting or budget cutting a bunch of stuff, food, type of clothes they give you. But you're talking about $400,000 per person over the course of 20 years. And then you're talking about 115,000 people. That's 5% of the U.S. prison population. If it's 2.3, if it's 2.4, you're talking about 120,000 people. And then, but you do the math on that. People could pull their calculators out right now and do 400,000 times 115,000, and you'll see what that number comes up to. So over the course of 20 years, 2 decades, our state across the country is spending billions. I think it's either 40 or 80 billion. I haven't done that number in quite a while, but I know these numbers. It's either 40 or 80 billion dollars that the taxpayers are paying to keep the wrong person in prison. That is a lot of money. And that is a reason why you should be watching these shows. That's the reason why you should be engaging with these shows. And that's the reason why we should be holding our elected officials accountable at the voting booth. And so those are real important reasons. You may not know Steve, you may not know Brendan, you may not know me, and you may not even care. But after you get your bill, and you get a bill every year, you should realize that, wait a minute, I don't want to continue for you to make the mistake and I pay the cost. Nobody would do that. Nobody would do that, my friend. Nobody does that. Wait a minute. You make the mistake. I get the bill. You
Right.
make a mistake, I get the bill. No, that's not fair. That's not fair, no matter how you splice it.
Right. Absolutely. And folks, he was just talking about the money end of it, which Tracy is saying the math on the little equation that he just proposed comes out to $46 billion, folks. So we're talking about a lot of money, folks. I forgot, or at least we didn't get to yet, the fact that the guy that actually did the heinous thing, or girl who did the heinous thing, is still out there doing it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. On top of everything else that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
On top of that. So that's why that's why we should be motivated. That's why our judges, DAs, everybody should be motivated to get it right. But I think mainly the most of the DAs and state, entities at this point are more interested in covering their butt.
Yeah.
And that's something we got to get to turn around. We just got to get that to turn around, because
Mark Gotze has become one of the leading voices when it comes to this issue of prosecutors. He wrote a book called Blind Justice by Mark Gotze. Listen, if you're a reader out there, it is a fascinating read. The guy used to be a prosecutor, and I mean a prosecutor. They call him a prosecutor's prosecutor. He would prosecute a prosecutor. Not that he did, but he's that type of prosecutor, and he breaks down so intellectually and eloquently in his book how he thought, how he saw us, and he represents the fundamental mistakes that prosecutors make across the country. He really take the science out of the dark and bring it into the light. The mental thinking process of what are they thinking? What were you thinking? He breaks that down because he was on the far end of what a prosecutor is thinking as far as or not thinking or how they're not seeing us. He talks about that in his book, Blind Justice. He is now a defense lawyer. In fact, I think not only is he one of the leading voices in this space, but he also leads up a Innocence Project now, helping to get other innocent people out of prison. Powerful book, and an important notation for us all to pay attention to.
Sure. Yeah, I may have to check that one out too. That sounds interesting. I'd like to hear a former prosecutor break it down like that. So I mean, to tell you, Ricky, I mean, I don't know how much you know about Brendan's case, but when he was petitioning SCOTUS for a writ of certiorari, 6 different entities wrote amicus briefs for him, which is not, it's kind of unheard of. Generally, amici don't write briefs at the cert stage. They wait until the next stage, right? And so he got 6 of them. One of those was from former prosecutors and law enforcement and chiefs of police. One of them was from law professors. I mean, there was these amicus briefs were amazing. They were just amazing, and I enjoyed reading the one from the prosecutors and former chiefs of police and stuff. It was really interesting because they were there saying all the things that we've been saying about Brendan, and everything. So it's good to get those people to weigh in. So I'm very intrigued by that. I'm probably going to go ahead and check that book out. So thanks for suggesting it. So ultimately, it brings us to, talking about what this whole video is about. This whole live session has been about, and that is about what we can do. What is it we can do? I mean, you guys want to help Stephen and Brendan, right? But what is it we can do to help further our own causes? Well, the way we do that is to help prop other people up and help other people create awareness like we're doing right here, and helping each other out and creating, these platforms like Ricky's talking about. It's up to us to all be here talking. You guys know I've been telling you that creating the community here is what I've always been about, creating the place for people to come and talk and with like-minded people and to continue to talk about these things. But also I've always had a mind to bring in new people. You guys know I don't boot guilters out of my chats. I don't do it. They're allowed to say what they want to say as well. You know what I mean? And that's how I hope to, sway people. Similar to the way, Ricky, the conversation you had with that one prosecutor that one time where he kind of comes around. That's the way I work, folks. That's why I do things the way I do. So we all need to take an attitude of what we can do to continue to further, not just for Stephen and Brendan, because by helping Ricky and other wrongfully convicted and being aware of all that stuff and creating more awareness, we help Stephen and Brendan by doing that. You know what I mean? So the important thing we need to think about moving forward is what do we need to do? And I know Ricky has a particular plan that he probably wants to go ahead and share with you guys, and I'll let him talk about it now.
Well, sure. One of the things that I did when I came home, visualizing it before. Remember, talking to the journalists. If we know, let's talk about the issue, which is the bigger picture. So when I came home, I already had the bigger picture in mind. And again, I could have easily went and got me a recliner chair and just caught up on all the episodes of whatever that I've missed for 23 years. But right. I hit the ground running. 30 days out, I started a business business platform called I Am Resilience. Mm-hmm. I Am Resilience is this brand. It's this spirit. It's this ability for us to spring back after going through a difficult or a challenging situation. Here I was willing to put my resilience on full display, because not only did I just come from being gone almost a quarter century, I didn't even take a moment to breathe for myself before I immediately put on a pair of sneakers and I got to running. Right. And so this platform over here is called I Am Resilience, IAR. And I do a couple of things with this platform. One of the things I do is I talk about broken justice. That's important. Cannot talk about anything else without talking about broken justice. But the second thing that I do is I talk about resilience and what it takes to be resilient. And it's not just the individual. It's not Steve. It's not Brendan. It's not me. It's everybody around that camp who supports Steve, who supports Brendan, who has been there from the beginning. They operate in a spirit of a resilience, or they need to as well, because as you see, sometimes these roads are much longer and causes a much farther delay than we anticipate. So the spirit of resilience needs to be there. Lawyers who fight side by side and who lose when the client loses needs to understand the spirit of resilience. And so it is so imperative, and it's baked into the fabric of our criminal justice system, oftentimes in ways that people don't even recognize. We think resilience is simply reserved for people who dealt with trauma or some type of abuse, or who may have been diagnosed with some type of terminal illness. Usually resilience is associated with those right. type of scenarios. But in this space of criminal justice reform, the fight to push for policy changes and for other individuals to come home, it takes resilience. And again, some people is going to know how to do that. Some people are going to need to be trained up as it relates to how to do that. And so that's the task that I decided to marry and take on. So I Am Resilience has been going on for about 7 months now, been in about 9 states, about 6.5 months right before COVID of traveling. We're still slated. Once everything opened back up safely, we have destinations to still hit. We're going to stay in the space of virtual as well, but excited to be over here with I Am Resilience and slowly building our team up where it's not just me. And I'm not just talking about everyday people. I'm talking about professional individuals who says, Ricky, I love what you're doing. How can I help? Let's make this bigger. Really the essence of what you're doing tonight, saying, come on the show. Let's keep the lights on for Steve and Brendan, but let's also try to help you make this bigger. So, and
everybody else as well, all the other wrongfully convicted. So absolutely. Yeah. And I'm happy to do so. So, obviously, I mean, you have kind of a, you were talking a little bit about it earlier with the number one, get anchored, obviously, which is, let's go through this because I kind of like it. Number one, he's talking about getting anchored, folks. I mean, I can say that when I watched Making a Murderer, I was not an activist. I was no way, not even close. But suddenly, 8 months later, I was starting a YouTube channel, and I was, getting, involved. That was me. That was my moment of getting anchored. I spent 8 months getting anchored. Mm-hmm. I had been worrying about stupid, frivolous crap my entire life. And hey, look, I like fun stuff too, but I had spent a lot of time being the the goof off and really not taking things seriously, right?
Fine.
So, you know, that was for me an anchoring moment. And now it's changed my outlook on everything. I mean, now every decision I make, I'm thinking about my time, how much time I have scheduled for this or that. I got to go to work. I got this when I get home. I got everything. I mean, everything is like a chess game, you know, now, where it wasn't like that before. But getting anchored was part of that. And there was a feeling that came from it. That was what made it rewarding, is getting anchored and getting my head clear and figuring out the direction I was going and what the direction I wanted to go. Brought a somewhat of a sense of peace, a calming effect that I enjoyed, that I had struggled to maintain probably a lot of my life. Wow. So getting anchored, I'm totally with that. And then I love your next part of it is get moving. Yeah. Which is exactly what I did too, because I mean, within 8 months I started a YouTube channel, and now here I am coming up on 8,000 subscribers. So, but
beautiful.
You know, yeah. So I mean, I'm totally with that. What's the third step?
The third is find energy, because when you get anchored, really before you even get moving, you're really gonna have to think about three. Find energy, because we got to find reasons to keep going. And in the space of doing this, and all these shows, all these hours, working a regular job, one of the third things you had to do is find energy. Find energy to be able to keep doing that. And finding energy is not like finding your keys. I can promise you that, right? And so it's a source. You got to find your energy source. Right. Which that be it your religion, be it something that you told your grandmother before she passed away, be it this is what I promised to my children, wherever you could, be it music, be it I exercise and then I go to work, wherever it is that you find your energy, that is for people to decide. But I just informed them that key 3 is so important. You must find your energy. You definitely did that. I think the fourth one, if I could finish it for you, is access perspective. And so really looking at, you just said that. You said, hey, I've been doing this in life. I like to have fun, but I also think my life should be serious as well. That is a form of accessing perspective, looking around, seeing where you are, seeing what's going on, seeing what you can do different, and then doing that different. The fifth key is to live selfless, or be selfless rather, and then aside that is live outside yourself. Clearly, anybody who's taken up the torch to help innocent people come home and stayed all these many years, they are definitely being selfless and living outside themselves. So they really are embodying the 5 keys. Now there's 10 real facets. I will say this real quick, as it relates to the trauma part, as it relates to the bigger breakdown. I actually am participating in a process where I can teach that in a workshop setting in a much, much, much real way with the science behind it. But these 5 key, those 10 facets can be found in my 5 keys. So the mini version of the 10 facets. And you guys are exercising it. You just showed or exemplified or shared with us right now exactly what your 5 keys were. You connected with them, and really you gave us your 1 minute We Are Resilience video.
Well, I did too, folks.
Bam.
I'll even go back and I'll upload that. I'll go back and pull that part out of this live and upload it.
So yesterday we launched, excited over here at IAR to have launched a campaign called #WeAreResilience. And you did talk about that. So excited to be participating or to be in front of what I believe is a global initiative where we can turn the cameras on ourselves, express what we believe our resilience is, upload it, and then #WeAreResilience. The vision is to be able to look in that search bar, put up #WeAreResilience, and then watch floods of stories come in all across the globe of what people believe their resilience looks like. The takeaway in this, and I'm so passionate and adamant about this, is that we get to participate in global connectivity. We don't do that every day. We don't get to do that every day. We get to participate in global connectivity and in collective healing, because there's something about talking about that. There's something about mentioning that out loud, what I've overcome and what I've been able to do. There's something empowering about that. And some people have been reluctant and fearful, but I really want to kind of nudge you a little bit, not to be uncomfortable or inconsiderate to what you may have been through. But I'm telling you, there is a relief when you could stand in front of if you don't want to do it in front of the camera, I'll give you a compromise. I want you to, but stand in front of your mirror and give your I am resilient statement. You won't be able to hashtag we are resilient or be a part of the campaign, but you will feel somewhat emboldened. You will feel that you confronted your reality, your truth, and then that you can access key number 2, get moving after you do that. So I really want people to participate in this unique opportunity. We don't get every day to do this. This is not an everyday opportunity where we can participate collectively in touching each other, hearing from each other, and growing out of this, especially when we talk about COVID-19. Everybody's feeling like, or everybody should have a story of resilience after coming through something like this. So it's meaningful, but it can be fun too. This is a meaningful movement, but it can be fun as well. I saw people like the more funner ones, like catch your friend sleeping and pour water on them. I'm kind of making that up, but people like those, and those are fun. But this is meaningful and fun, folks. So I really want you listening viewers, I really want everybody to muster up the courage to turn that camera on yourself, take a 30-second up to 1 minute video expressing your resilience, upload it to your socials, hashtag we are resilience. One more compromise real quick that I'll go for. If you're not really big on the camera, just take a picture of yourself, of your old self, when you was in the army or when you was in a space of being down, and then just type in your post and then hashtag we are resilience. I just want to hear from you. I want the world to hear from you, and I want us to be able to participate in what I truly believe is therapeutic. So it works for me. I believe it's a medicine. It's an antidote that could work for others.
Yes. Let's see if we can get that hashtag going, folks. Let's see if we can get that hashtag, trending. If you understand what Ricky's saying, folks, we all come together on it. We're all lending our small little voice in our own small little way. Okay. But when it comes all together, when we get thousands of people that have uploaded a 1 minute video, it becomes something special at that point. It becomes, it becomes something self-evident, of itself. And so I encourage all of you. I know I got some people did today. I noticed at least 5 or 6 people from the video I did last night and sharing Ricky's YouTube video from yesterday, that I've seen at least 5 or 6 people. I'm probably sure there's more that have done it. So, I mean, just please, people, give it a think, do it. You guys know I've encouraged you guys to do this in the past, and I know you guys were reluctant for a long time, but in the last year or so, we've now seen 4 people pop up and become YouTubers who have been listening to me, and I'm glad. I want more people to get vocal about it. I want more people to discover their voice and to discover their resilience, as Ricky puts it. I want people to do that, and so I hope they continue to. By the way, you may end up having a lot more people trying to reach out to you as a guest for their channels, by the way, at some point. But anyways, no. So, no, there's a lot of people that have started to get vocal about this, and I do appreciate that. So everybody, please, like those of you who aren't willing to start a YouTube channel, Ricky's asking for 1 minute. 1 minute's not a lot. I think you guys can manage it. So I'd love to see it.
30 seconds. Listen, it's as simple as this. I'm going to give you one right here. I'm going to give you an example right here live. You heard it straight from the exoneree's mouth. I won't say a horse, but the exoneree's mouth. And it is this. And this is really, really short, but we can be moved by it. Hi, my name is Ricky Kidd. I spent 23 years wrongfully convicted for a crime that I did not commit. I lived in hell for 23 years. Keys clinging, noise loud, no privacy, away from my family. My daughters graduated school and college without me being there. It was rough. It was hard. I overcame after losing 11 times. And I believe that makes me resilient.
Yeah.
My name is Ricky Kidd, and I am resilience. And so that's 10, 15, 20 seconds. Upload that, hashtag that, we are resilience. So when you end it, you say, I am resilience, but the hashtag is we are resilience, because collectively we become resilience as one. So it's not that hard. It could be a much condensed version. It could be not as detailed if you don't want it to. Hi, my name is Tracy. I've suffered a lot in my life. I still made it, and I am resilient. You don't even have to go into fully what you suffered if it's a little uncomfortable for you. But let's collectively do this, folks, where we can be resilient as one. Resilient as one. That's what we want to be able to do. I'm excited about it. If we can do this and then participate in this connectivity, because really, my friend, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about us connecting. You're talking about not just Steve and not just Brendan and not just Ricky, but the whole humanity of it. Yeah. The whole humanity. Like, I came home, and one of the things that I'm so excited about is participating in our humanity. I honestly feel, and I have to say this, that people say, what was the one of the hardest parts about coming home, Ricky? And I've been quoted for saying, watching how we've lost our humanity for almost 23 years and 3 months, almost 25 years. And I come back home and they say, what was so different? They think I'm going to say the roads or the bridges or the highways, and people are more rude. They're less polite. I mean, I was shocked that we have lost so much of our humanity. We into ourselves, we into our cell phones, we into our feeds, we into our video games, and then in a process that you got your head down in your phone so much that you don't even realize you lost not your wallet, not your jewelry, not your keys, but your humanity. And that's why this is so important to me, this platform here over at I Am Resilience. And that's why these type of challenges mean so much to me, sprinkled into the bigger picture of criminal justice reform. But how do we ever really get to criminal justice reform if we're so dispersed, if we're so separated, and if we're not collectively being one human family? So humanity is important. It needs to be restored. And I hope that some of this, of what we're doing over here, actually contributes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal. That's the goal, folks. So, let's go ahead. If you guys are interested, if you can muster the courage, let's go ahead and get this hashtag rolling. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Ricky.
Yeah, thank you, my friend.
I look forward to maybe even having a chat with you again in the future. At some point. So I know the weekend of October 2nd, you may be busy, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see you pop in at some point. Maybe.
Yeah. Who knows? I definitely got a big head that I like to pop in. So you never know when this big melon head is gonna pop in there.
Right on, dude. You're always welcome. You're always welcome, man. All right, folks. So that was our chat with Ricky today. I hope you guys walked away with something useful, helpful, something that you can take to the bank and find useful in your life, and if nothing else, help inform you in the way of how we can proceed in making awareness with wrongful convictions. I hope you guys have all found something unique and tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to Ricky. Thank you, everybody, for showing up for the video and hanging out with us. It's been a great time. And, like I said, we'll be talking to more wrongfully convicted folks here in the coming future. I'm currently speaking to a few other exonerees. So, the focus is going to be here, folks. So I hope you guys are going to be able to stick with me and be on board with me on this, because I think it's important. And Ricky has just reaffirmed every reason why I think it's important. He has just reaffirmed it for you today. So let's move forward and let's become a powerful force for not just Stephen and Brendan, but for others. All right, folks.
All right,
we'll
guys.
see you. If you haven't already, please subscribe.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good evening.